What it do, Modified 95. Welcome back. I wanted to give you guys a glimpse today into my ill mind. It's frantic and exciting, and it's all over the place, and it's hard for me to stay focused, but I tried to script out this video, which means I have to remember what I wrote down, which I'm not good at. But we'll see what's going on. But I'm feeling some type of way. And by some type of way, I mean that, man, I really want to build this ghetto Type R. I'm gonna call it that because it's not a poor man's Type R, because I think we all know what that is, but I'll mention it later if we do not. All right, so let's get started. So this is a project video. If you can't tell how obsessed I am with both the Civic Type R and the Integra Type R from some of these features, that would be surprising. These are some of my favorite wheels. I pretty much have factory wheels for all my cars because I love 15s. Just because it fits so conveniently, and it's great on a daily. These came off a 2005 Civic Special Edition I found out in the junkyard. These cost about $150, and they had tires on. They had a 60 series sidewall, and I burned through those because those were a little too tight even for this. And so once those burned through, I actually put new tires on there, and I got 195, 50, 15s, and that's just perfect. These look the closest to the Integra Type Rs. I think they're 16s, and they have that countersunk centerpiece. I found some for sale. I think I'm gonna show a picture from a guy named Honda Hustle. It's his page on eBay. I don't own these pictures, but they're $1,350 with $199 shipping. If I had that money, I would buy them, but like I said, like everything around here, it's a budget build. So $150 junkyard. It looks close. Maybe one day they'll get powder coated to match. All right, other features that I really liked about the Type R was the wrinkle red valve cover. This one was done by hand. You can see it's not perfect, but it looks just like it. Picked up this oil cap out of the UK. I don't know if the real ones are like this. It came in a Honda bag, but they're plastic with a metal covering instead of being all metal, so I really don't know, but don't care. It looks like the right one. Same thing with the Integra stock sway bar. The Civic Type R has one just like it, except for it almost has like a wrinkle red color on there. So I thought just a $60 Integra one was fine, down to replacing the GSR manifold with the Skunk 2 one. Gives a lot more of that Type R feel. So those are some of the things that really stood out about some of the aesthetic parts of the Type R that I really liked. So I'm like, why can't I create something a little bit more similar to that? This time I'm going a little bit more in depth. Other things I have, you see back here, I'm rocking the cheap $99 eBay hollow CTR replica wing, and then I finally shelled out for the actual CTR wing. It says Honda on the bottom. It's for real. I checked. It just needs to be painted, but as you can see from all the peeling, paint is the very last thing I usually get into when doing a project. This one I made a quick swap with a good friend of mine. He wanted to be 99 2000, which I have on that 97 over there, and I wanted to be the classic CTR, and so I have the gunmetal lights and the lip and the fog lights and the intersection lights that go on the side. So those will all go in with side markers when it's time to get painted. All right, so let's I want to show you what my idea was. I know it's kind of crazy, but bear with me. I always like to hear your thoughts on this. I've gotten lots of good feedback. I said make the video sexier. I'm trying, but what could be sexier than these cars? And I just returned home last night from a family trip to Las Vegas. Had a lot of fun. It was very eventful. And while we're planning family events, I'm looking for Honda parts, and I found a lot of great stuff. I picked up two things I want to show you. I also connected with a really great new friend of mine who actually found me through my videos, and he runs his own company. He 3D prints stuff, and he hooked it up with one of my favorite things. Been looking for one of these forever. People want like $10, $20 for this instead of like $3, and he just hooked it up. I'm very thankful for that. And this awesome piece for my keychain. This little prototype you have, a little Honda valve cover. And he's working on this really cool piece. It's just a funnel that screws in to your valve cover. So very cool. So what I found when I was over there, and I'm actually going to link his company down below and I'll put it like under the socials. I'll put his in there. That way you guys can check out the cool stuff that he 3D prints. I think he's had a company for a while. I picked up a Integra Type R intake manifold. Sorry, exhaust manifold. I already had the intake manifold, and I picked up a P73 ECU. So I'm hoping that's going to lend to the project that I'm trying to create. So these are those beauties. I'm not sure if they are real or replicas, but I really wanted them being in California with emissions. The guy said they were from HMO, and like a Fox News viewer, I did not look any further into it or do any fact checking. I just took it at face value and said, cool, it'll work. They're a little scraped up on the bottom. I hope that doesn't kill the flow too much. People said, why didn't you get DC Sports ones? Well, I had DC Sports ones. I have plenty of stock manifolds, but I wanted this one partly for the style, but also hopefully that they flow well for the legendary Type R. And then I also picked up a P73 ECU. So I want to make a few changes to my GSR, including a lot of Type R parts. All right, there's that ECU. But I don't want to have to do any kind of crazy tuning, even if I'm leaving a lot. I'm only trying to like make it a little bit more fun to drive. But also, if I need to, I can use one of these, the P30 and a P28 that I just also happen to have lying around if I needed to. And I could piggyback off those with like a Honda or some other system if what I plan doesn't work out and it actually has to be tuned. Just recently, within the last 3 months or so, I made a video about my 96 Civic hatch that had a GSR swap that spun a bearing. It's right here. I've made 2 videos. I'll put the title cards in here so you can see them. They'll just come on for a few seconds with some tunes. Yeah, so I have one of taking apart the GSR where I found the spun bearing. So the crank got sent away and that's getting fixed and it's going to be put back together. And then one of the videos is of me swapping this out and putting in a B16, which belongs to my housemate. So I'm just borrowing it until this can be rebuilt. And I'm also going to show some pictures of what the motor looked like when I first got it. Now, mind you, I found this off OfferUp. It was like $400. It had the top half of the exhaust manifold, no intake manifold, had a transmission that needed 3rd gear replaced, right? So we opened up the trans, replaced that gear and the synchros that went around it so that it would shift smooth. We literally checked nothing else. I mean, we changed the spark plugs. I found a new manifold, put the gasket on, bolted it on. We dropped it in and only swapped out the water pump because it was shooting water out on our first startup. And then I ran that thing like I was above Osaka or on the Wangan Highway for 2 years, maybe 3, with not doing much besides changing the oil. Even the air filter, I just recently changed the air filter. I had it on there for quite a long time because I have other cars, so I didn't drive it every day. So I didn't consider that it may have gotten dirty. So I ran the air filter for way longer than it should. So yeah, I'm going to include, I think 3 or 4 pictures of what that looked like. And it pretty much just went straight in. And so even though this happened and the bearing spun, most of it is salvageable, and it was cool that I could actually send the crank away to get fixed because it's really hard to find another one that also didn't need to be fixed. People were like, oh, you could probably do it cheaper, just buy a new one. No, you can't, I found out, because all the ones I saw online probably needed some love, which would have costed probably double what I paid, and I already had this part in-house that just needed to be fixed up. I feel like I have shown some of these things before, so I don't want to take a lot of time on this. But I found a P73 intake manifold, which I had, and I said, hey, that's pretty Type R-ish. And I want to couple that with a 70 millimeter throttle body, and then port match and polish that so it has more of the flow characteristics of the Type R. And then next, building the bottom end, I'm like, well, they fit, they're the same size. So I got these P73 pistons with full floating wrist pin, and then I found these. I mean, and these are probably more than I actually needed as to like strength, because I'm not going turbo or doing anything extreme or trying to rev past where my car naturally would hit like red line or rev limiter. But they look cool, and the price was unbeatable. So I mean, almost the price of finding these used was similar to the price of buying Type R style rods. And then also too, like as we continue on the budget build, a lot of the changes I'm making also has to do with like what just I have or what my roommate have that we have collected over the years. So in this Super Tech box, it's obviously not Super Tech stuff, but here's some LMAs. These are just the normal ones, and I'm sure these ones probably went bad. That's why my roommate switched them out, or like they probably weren't bad, but these ones don't work as well as like the Type R style ones that I think look like the Skunk 2 ones. So my housemate has a couple sets of the Skunk 2 ones. We just got to pull apart the head and put those in. And I think these are the exhaust side and these are the intake side. And so since my GSR head, which is sitting right beside me, already has those on the intake side. I think both the B16 and the GSR have them on the intake side, where the Type R has them on both sides. And I think they're about the same tension in both. What I want to do, and I've actually watched a couple videos where some people have done this, I want to put this dual intake side spring from a B16 onto the exhaust side of my GSR head, hoping to make it a little bit more, how you say, Type R-ish. And so I was just continuing. That's some of the thoughts that I have inside my head for this build that I'm trying to make. Other things, I think that there's 3 other things I think the Type R has that I don't quite have yet. One would be, I think it has an oil cooler. I don't know if I need that, but I'm going to check that out to see if it's worth putting that in. 2, it has a lighter flywheel than the stock GSR or B16. And then also, I already have this. I've already been running this. I'm trying not to drop the Woodruff key off of it, but I also have the Type R style crank pulley. Yeah, so the crank pulley. So I think lightening up those assemblies, which I already had on there, and I had absolutely no problem from running this, because I ran it a long time and very hard before having any kind of issue, and that might have just been from maybe starving the motor of a little bit of oil. It's also a big part of why I'm not going turbo. Yeah, so those are the last 3 things that I think that I would need to address. And this car would be pretty similar to a Type R. And I'm shooting for 50 horsepower per cylinder. So 200 would be my goal, or somewhere near that. I think that the GSR was like, what, 170? The B16 was like 160, 165. They're all pretty close, right? And the Type R was 195. So I think if I put all this stuff together and run it with the P73 ECU, that I should be able to get somewhere near that without having to do a crazy fuel system or computer system or any of those things. And in California, the crazy regime of emissions that we have here, I'm just blown away, because I was in Nevada and my friend came over, and this show quality EG exhaust running out the hood, shooting flames. I guess that's legal. Like, where, I mean, if you're have too much tint or an air freshener in California, you are darn near a felon here. But I would like for a lot of these differences from the GSR to the Type R that I'm kind of commingling to not really show themselves until higher RPMs. So for smog purposes, I think I should be able to put on my stock GSR computer, and it should run and flow like a stock GSR for emissions. And then for fun, I could put on my P73 ECU and it would run more like the Type R. I wish that I had a video of me doing some cool car thing. I'm gonna have a bunch coming, so please stick with me. If this was bored you out of your mind, I think it's fun. I hope it'll lead to some controversy, some conversations. So I wanted to beat a few questions before they arose. Question number 1. James, why don't you K-swap it? because I don't want to K-swap it. I know it's new, I know it's hip, I know it's fast, but it just lacks the beauty and nostalgia. And I used to have an EP3 and I loved it, and there were so many cool design features, but man, I hated that cable transmission. It just felt like the car was driving itself, and I want a driver's car. I want to be able to feel it. So I know it's awesome, I know they're accessible. Here's one sitting right here in my driveway, but not for this build. I talked about the poor man's Type R, and they say, why don't you build a poor man's Type R? Putting on a B16 head onto a GSR bottom end would be like a poor man's Type R. I know it would, but like, I'm trying to keep this California legal, you know, stockish for the most part. And so I don't want to swap in one of those, even though they are also readily available. You know, it's always good to have spares. So that's the second thing that I'm not going to do. And probably the last question I think that people would ask, be like, well, why don't you just buy a Type R? And yes, I see them online. I've been on OfferUp looking for different Type R parts to include in this build, because I think the last thing that I really need to complete this would be the Type R cams. So I'm looking for a set of those. If any of you guys have one of those, hit me up. My email is the same as my screen name. Just add Hotmail at the end. But yeah, I'm just looking for those. I think it's the last thing I need. And that's the thing, I don't want to get crazy aggressive with the cams, because I don't want to have to go crazy with upgrading the valve train on the top end. And I do not want to have to tune. That's the big thing, is I don't want to deal with that. It's just an added expense, and we're definitely trying to keep this as ghetto or as budget as possible, but also having the reliability. And yeah, so I see them online for, you know, anywhere from about 3,000 all the way up to about 7K, you know, with the transmission, with the LSD, with everything. And it's like, yeah, you could totally do that. But the amount of fun I've been having in this Indiana Jones archaeological kind of searching through the history to find these different parts, connect with a lot of great people. I mean, I've met, you know, I don't know, just in the last month, I've met like 4 awesome people just bonding over Hondas and Acuras, you know, and they know people who have parts, and I have parts that they might need. And so that's part of like the adventure. You know, if your life is boring, that's a choice. You know, meet cool friends, buy a Honda, be my friend. And I think honesty is very big. A lot of people say, hey, I'm going to do a budget build, and then they pull out this amount of money equal to the GDP of a small country like Puerto Rico. And it's like, that's not a budget. You know, if I had the money just to buy all this stuff, I would do that. So that's not what we're doing. We're doing what we have in the garage, stuff we can find on OfferUp, Facebook Marketplace, you know, by word of mouth. That's what we're doing. All right, I'll see you guys next time.